a bit of a problem right here. I need to know the fastest way I can visit all the shops on this floor because I'm in a bit of a hurry. Can you help me out?
There is organization which can help you with this problem. It's called Glue. I can give you the helpline number. It's 18002.
Okay, thanks a lot. Hello?
Ma'am?
Can you tell me the most efficient way I can visit all the shops? Yeah, I'm short of time and I need to be in a party in exactly 2 hours.
We often come across this problem and we also named it. It's called Glue, Girls Lost on Orchard. We have the perfect solution for you. I'm streaming a video to it right now.
Welcome to NP Solve. We are the one-stop destination to all your navigation problems. The problem you are facing is very similar to a certain problem we call the traveling salesman problem or the robo exploration problem. Our entire video today will be based on the robo exploration problem. Before we go towards the problem statement itself, we need to be aware of certain terms. So let's look at the terms now. Suppose this is a graph. These circles that you see in the graph are the nodes. Nodes are basically the intersection of edges. The lines connecting to nodes are called the edges, and each edge has a certain number written on it. Say this is 10, this is 5, 2 and 3. So basically what this number represents is the amount of resource a robo consumes in going from one node to the other. Okay. I suppose these are the terms that we need to know and they should help us a lot in the algorithm. Now let's look at the problem statement itself. What does the traveling salesman problem or the robo exploration problem actually say? It says that suppose we start from a certain node, let's say 1. The objective of the problem is to traverse all the different nodes exactly once and return to the home node again. So now let's move on and delve a little into the history and the evolution of this problem.
Now, where did this problem of the traveling salesman originate? It started in 1859 when Sir William Rowan Hamilton proposed this problem using a flattened dodecahedron. What he did was he assumed each of these points to be nodes. For example, they can be cities. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to traverse this whole network, going through each node exactly once and coming back to the starting node. Now, there are many ways to solve this problem. There are algorithms. The first one, and the most intuitive one, is the brute force search, where you use you find every single path, and then compute the time taken for each of those paths, and just compare them and then find the shortest one. Now, that would be very effective if the number of nodes is very small. Like if it's a small network with around 4 or 5 nodes, that will work. But for example, if it has 30 nodes, this will have around 29 factorial pathways, which is this many pathways. This number, if you don't know, is very huge. And now, if you assume that you can calculate the time taken for each path in just 1 nanosecond, that will still take around these many years, 2.8 into 10 power 14 years. Now this unnecessary waste of time can be reduced if we have other computationally efficient algorithms.
Now that was some interesting bit of history, wasn't it? Okay, to solve the traveling salesman problem or the robo exploration problem, today there are a number of different algorithms. But based on our studies, we found that the genetic algorithm provides a very near optimal solution. Now what is the genetic algorithm? The genetic algorithm is used in evolutionary studies to find the fittest individual. It's based on the concept of survival of the fittest. But it has a very good application for our traveling salesman problem, as it can find near optimal solution just the way it finds the fittest individuals. Okay. Now before we move on to the algorithm per se, let's look at certain assumptions we are making. Now here's a graph. Now, what are the things that the robo knows beforehand? We assume firstly that the robo has unlimited memory. So it can store all the nodes, the edge weights, everything. Second assumption we are making is that the robo is aware of the entire terrain. It's aware of where the nodes are, what are the edge weights between two nodes, etc. And the last and final assumption we make is that each and every node is interconnected to all nodes. As you can see, one is connected to all the other nodes. Now, what this tells us is that suppose the robo is at any location, it can go to any other location. Now that we have seen what are the assumptions that have been made, let's move on to the algorithm itself.
Let's start with the generic algorithm to solve the robot exploration / traveling salesman problem. Now, one thing very common about these kind of problems are that they're NP-complete problems. Well, actually all Hamiltonian cycles are NP-complete problems. Now, what does NP mean? NP stands for non-deterministic polynomial. This means that it's impossible to solve the problem analytically in polynomial time. But, however, as we will see in the genetic algorithm, it is actually possible to guess the solution and test it in polynomial time. So, although this algorithm doesn't solve the problem per se, it finds the solution to the problem in polynomial time. Okay, so let's get down to business. Genetic algorithm is modeled on real life. So we start with a generation of chromosomes. Okay, say we start with 16 of them. But what are chromosomes? How do we encode them? Well, in this case, it's just an array of integers or permutation strings as we call it. Okay, but how do we possibly represent it? Now, as you will know, the nodes can be reflected by different numbers. So what we want to show is, we just try out different possibilities of nodes by indicating numbers, say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And randomly, we generate 16 of these. Well, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 represent different nodes. And we will also have corresponding edge weights between corresponding nodes, adjacent nodes. Okay, now what's the first step? So we have our population. So the first thing we want to do is, we want to test the fitness of this generation. Now, by fitness I mean, we choose the two best chromosomes so that they can cross over and give us a product or offspring. So, how do we check the fitness? Well, obviously we define a fitness function. And basically what we're doing in this fitness function is, we're checking the two best solutions by summing up the edge weights. Now, the ones which have the two lowest edge weights will be the fittest bunch. Now, we need one more condition in addition to this, that is non-repetition. We won't need it in our first go, but then as iterations increase, we will be needing it, because the genetic algorithm generates a lot of meaningless solutions which can be eliminated using that particular factor. Okay, now let's go on to crossover. Now this again follows from biology, where Mendelian crosses take place. So we have two arrays which represent our two different solutions. Let's call them, say, A and B. And what we basically do is, we define a point of crossover, which again we can randomly do, or we can just define it. Say if this is my crossover point, and then if this part I call 1 and this part I call 2 and this is 3 and this is 4, then what I get as a result of this crossover will be 1, 4 and 2, 3. So these are two of the offspring. But again, you might understand that crossing over might not be a good thing, because this might not be as good as the parents in terms of fitness. So we have to also reference the fitness function to actually test out whether these are better. One more thing is, when we are selecting the two parents for our crossover, we shouldn't always take the two best, because otherwise our solutions would saturate beyond the point and be the same if we're taking the two best cases. So that's why we use something known as the Roulé-Wheel principle, in which randomly, obviously giving more favor to the more fit of the fittest solutions, we select our parent chromosomes. Okay, now we go on to mutation, the third part. Now mutation. What we do is, with our two offspring, we now mutate them. Now how would we mutate them? We basically swap the order of particular nodes. Say if I were to define my point of mutation at, say, here, then I might decide to switch these two with these two, or vice versa, because all nodes are connected. This would still be a possibility. We wouldn't have disjoint nodes. But again, mutation will also might lead to undesirable results. So what we do is we use systematic mutation, which is we keep sending our mutated results to the same fitness function and checking whether they really are fitter than our crossover products. So this helps. So end of the day, we get 2 new chromosomes which are mutated. So we have mutated 1,4 prime, let's call it that, and we have 2,3 prime. And these reflect our mutated chromosomes if they are better, again referencing the fitness function, or not. And then these again get integrated to our original population of 14 chromosomes plus these 2 will give us 16. Now over to my colleague for more details on this.
Continuing from where my friend left, here in certain cases of mutation like selection mutation, there might be certain situations in which the offspring is not as good as the parent. In such cases, there's another process known as elitism which is used. This is another form of the fitness function, where we compare the parent and the parent solutions and the 2 offspring solutions which we have obtained. 1,4 prime and 2,3 prime. There might be certain, in some cases, suppose like assume maybe the parent is better than the offsprings, the best solutions are actually chosen and added over to the population of 14. This gives us a new population of 16. However, how do we know that we have come across a solution which is the best solution? In this case, there is another term such as defined like search space. Let this be a graph giving us the feasible regions of the fitness of each solution. Suppose as we are going across mutation with changing points of mutation, if the best solution is actually, suppose the solutions which we obtain are actually oscillating about an axis, say between maybe between this axis. So here we can conclude that a solution which is coinciding with this axis is our best solution.
Having seen the algorithm, let's look at a visual representation of it through this Java applet. This Java applet shows the working of the genetic algorithm. As you can see, there are 5 nodes in the graph here, and there are 16 arrays in the initial population that are shown in front. Currently, we are using the normal random mutation technique, so let's see in how many generations we can arrive at a solution using this. As you can see, within 2000 generations, 13 of the solutions are the same. So basically we have arrived at our answer. But in case we use the systematic improving mutation, then we can arrive at a solution much faster because this checks the fitness of each mutation. As you see, it has arrived at a solution within 900 generations, and thus it's much more efficient. Having seen the algorithm, now let's look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of this algorithm. Let's start with the advantages first. The first and foremost advantage of this algorithm is that it's a heuristics based algorithm. What heuristics means is basically it learns based on its prior experiences. This is evident in the algorithm where after every mutation, the population updates itself to a better set of solutions. Thus it is learning from its prior knowledge. So it's a heuristic algorithm. The second advantage of the algorithm is that it takes considerably lesser time as the number of nodes increase compared to the brute force algorithm and many other algorithms that are used to solve the robo exploration problem. This graph very clearly shows this fact. Let's see. This graph that we see, the e to the power x graph, represents the brute force algorithm, in which the time taken to solve the problem increases exponentially with the number of nodes. While the other graph we see is the genetic algorithm, which takes polynomial time to solve the same problem. Thus, suppose we compare at any one moment at a certain number of nodes, we see that the brute force algorithm and the other algorithms take much more time compared to our genetic algorithm. Problem. In the mutation step, suppose we have one parent, and when we mutate it, all the mutations happen to be cyclic permutations of the same parent. Then the algorithm will be forced into assuming that it has reached the final solution, whereas this is not the case. So while solving the problem, we need to take into account that this is a possibility. Okay, the second disadvantage we face is that in the entire discussion of the algorithm, we never mentioned how to get back to the starting node. So basically, according to the assumptions we made earlier, we said that all nodes are connected. So what we do is that we just go from the last node to the first node. Now this is not very optimal, but as we mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video, that the genetic algorithm provides a near optimal solution only. The last disadvantage is a disadvantage that is common to almost every algorithm, that it starts to fail, or rather not fail, but starts to take a very long time when the number of nodes increase. This is clearly evident from the graph that I showed you earlier. As you can see, whether it's the brute force algorithm or the genetic algorithm or any other algorithms in between, as the number of nodes increases, the time will continue to increase, and that is always a problem. I hope our broad explanation of the robo-exploration problem has helped you in solving your shopping problem. So we hope to seeing you again. Thank you.
I hope you've understood, ma'am. Have a nice day. Hello? Ma'am? Are you still there? Hello?